Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV. That was Aaron, just in case you didn't know. Here on the Spanglish Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Pretty soon we'll be able to stop saying that. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Frank. How are you?
Good. And thank you to all of you who are joining in to watch. And hope you're all enjoying Hump Day. The Stanley Cup continues again tomorrow. A lot of days off between games, I've noticed.
Yeah, they do seem to space them out. I mean, it's understandable. You can't sort of have them going every other day like they used to. And because there's only two teams left now, it's not as much of a scheduling hassle, but at the same time, it's still late.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us and watching. I really appreciate your participation in what we're doing. Let's start with the sports, and we'll start with our favorite sport. Okay, not everybody's favorite sport, but it works out to being mine, and that is the Canadian Football League, football and the Canadian Football League. Let us know what's going on there, Aaron, and we'll start with Oliveira to miss Bombers game Thursday, Lawler to 6th game. So they're missing Lawler, and I don't know if they're getting their middle linebacker back. This is a team with an injured list early that could be problematic for them.
It's a big hit to take right out of the gate. Bernie Oliveira has a knee injury, so he's not going to be suiting up. And Kenny Lawler is on the 6-game injured list after reportedly fracturing his arm in the team's Week 1 loss to the Montreal Alouettes. In response to this, the Bombers added linebacker fullback Billy Feltmate and Tony Jones to the practice roster. Oliveira, for those who haven't added him to their fantasy team yet, you can bring the sigh of relief. He was the league's most outstanding Canadian in 2023, thanks to his 1,534 rushing yards and a combined 2,016 yards in total. Once he comes back, you'll be able to add him in. Lawler had 3 catches for 26 yards last week against the Owls. He currently has 50 catches for 901 yards with 6 touchdowns last year for the Bombers. First-year receiver Karen Leafall is going to be taking Lawler's spot in the starting lineup on Thursday against the Phillies.
Aaron, I don't know if it's me, and if Eduardo could let us know, it sounds like Aaron is. Is that just me? Is that just Eduardo?
Let me make a quick adjustment here. Is that better?
Yes, that's it.
Perfect.
That does it. You sounded like you were in a tunnel, and I didn't want to interrupt the story. Okay, let's also go now to the Bombers, where they add a fullback in Bailey Feltmate, linebacker Tony Jones to practice roster, 2 positions that you just announced and previously announced injuries on.
Yeah, so Feltmate is going to be joining the Bombers after being a late camp release by the Ticats. He appeared in 31 games in between 2016 and 2020 at Acadia before being selected in the second round, 17th overall by the Ticats in the 2020 draft. He spent the past 3 seasons with the Ticats, recording 35 special team tackles and 4 defensive tackles in 43 games. Flip side of that, Jones has signed with the Bombers after being released by the Edmonton Elks. Jones has 20 games of CFL experience, including dressing for all 18 games with the Elks in 2023, starting in 5. He's recorded 41 defensive tackles, 11 special teams tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 sack. So they're shoring themselves up in positions of dire need at this point. And it's kind of funny to be saying that when we're only a game into the season.
No kidding. Not everybody's played. The Red Blacks will be playing soon. And speaking of them, they added Winston Rose to their practice roster.
Exactly. He's a 2-time Grey Cup champion in 2019 and 2021, and a former CFL All-Star defensive back. A veteran of 70 CFL games over the course of the past 6 seasons, Rose returns to the Red Blacks, where he began his career north of the border in 2017. He spent the last 4 campaigns with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, helping them to back-to-back Grey Cup wins in 2019 and 2021, along with 2 more appearances in 2022 and 2023. Through 10 regular season games in 2023, Rose put up 32 tackles and nabbed his 18th career interception. Ottawa is going to be opening its season at TD Place on Thursday against these same Blue Bombers that he used to play with.
Absolutely, and it's going to be an interesting game. You've got a team that, at the very least, as much as one game can define you as reeling and one injury report, they are kind of reeling. That's a bit of an issue for them to deal with. Let's talk about the Ticats. They added a Big Ten all-time passing yards leader in Tagovailoa. Oh boy, forget it.
Tagovailoa? There we go.
Oh, thank you. My Hawaiian is just not so good right now.
It's okay. I'm butchering it too, and I do apologize for
Tuna Rye, though, is doing a great job.
I do apologize for Talia for that. Now, Tagovailoa recently attended 2 NFL mini camps with the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. He's a native of Iwa Beach, Hawaii. He's played 41 games over 4 seasons at the University of Maryland, completing 955 of 1,424 passing attempts for 11,256 yards. He's the Big Ten's all-time leader in passing yards and completion percentage at 67.1%. He also holds a fistful of records with Maryland, including passing yards, passing touchdowns with 76, total touchdowns with 89, and completions with 955. He's also tied with current Ticats head coach Scott Milanovich for the most passing touchdowns in a single season in Maryland history. So there's a bit of a historical connection there. We'll see if they can leverage that to their advantage this season.
And we'll see. The Elks signed national defensive back Josh Haggerty.
So this is a good pickup for them. He's appeared in 31 games over 3 CFL seasons with the Argos. He recorded 39 total tackles and won the 109th Grey Cup back in 2022. He was selected in the 6th round of the 2021 CFL draft, 47th overall, following 3 seasons at the University of Saskatchewan.
Elks also bring back fullback Bruno Lagasse.
So he returns to Edmonton a mere 11 days after having been released by them on June 1st. He appeared in the team's 2 preseason games against the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the BC Lions. He was originally drafted by the Green and Gold in the 7th round of the 2023 draft. He would have been returning to the Montreal. Well, he did return to the Montreal Carabins for the 2023 season, where he won the 58th Vanier Cup and was named an RSEQ Defensive All-Star. So, just a little bit of time away from the team, but now he's back.
Argos released defensive lineman Sean Oakman. That could be a lot of stories. He came to camp injured, is now released, and he can be released because the injury wasn't one that he got in, playing for the Argos. Now, this is a valuable player. I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, the temptation for him to go to another team on his part and another team bringing him in, it's got to be extremely high. I know the Argos are probably hoping that he hangs around anyway and waits till he's healthy.
Well, so what was it that he'd picked up at the tail end of last season then, or in between the end of last season and the start of this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't find out what the injury was. It was just he couldn't play because he was injured.
Now there are understandably a large number of Argonauts fans who haven't fully looked into this situation and just saw that he was released and are now crying doom. I would recommend to these individuals that they step back and away from their keyboards, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm sure we'll find out soon.
Well, it could be just a ploy to save cap space. It could be as simple as that.
It's entirely possible. I mean, we all know that they find themselves in a rather difficult position this season, even after getting a suspended player to renegotiate his contract so that they try to fit more people in. So we'll find out.
The Elks bring back. Sorry, I already said that. The Owls defensive back Stubblefield out for the season with a torn ACL. That's got to hurt.
Dude, he suffered it in the final moments of the third quarter of Thursday's game against the Blue Bombers. It didn't look like he landed well at all. He joined the Owls in 2023 and had a standout defensive season with 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. He also finished with 38 defensive tackles with 13 games played. The Owls have added offensive tackle Jason Turnitine to the practice roster. Turnitine attended training camp with the Owls earlier this year. Give me 5 seconds here, Frank. I'm just going to do something real quick.
Go ahead.
And we're back. Sorry about that.
No worries. Statement on the use of microchip implanted footballs.
So this is a new development that's come up for the CFL. A lot of the footballs that they're using for passing plays have been chipped. There are now their teams are now able to make a choice between chip balls for tracking purposes and non-chipped. There have been some kickers who have been complaining about the microchipped apparently throwing off the balance of the ball. Effective immediately, the CFL has said that teams will no longer be mandated to use microchip implanted footballs for kicking plays. However, because some kickers have expressed the desire to continue using them, teams will decide at the beginning of the game whether to use microchipped balls or technology-free balls for all kicking plays for the duration of the contest. The league has tested these footballs using robotic technology and current CFL players. While there is no definitive evidence to suggest their use impacts performance in any manner, the CFL are taking the step out of respect for kickers who do not yet feel comfortable using them.
Understandable.
Yeah. I mean, even a little change in weight can throw off a ball. So I don't know where they're putting it in the ball. It can affect the spin depending on where it is.
It's fairly sized. The thing of it is, the irony here is they didn't put the chip in for the kicker. They put it in for the kick returner to get that data is the punt return, kick return. That's why they have it in there. It isn't even because of the kicker. So it's kind of ironic that the reason they can't do it isn't the kick returner, which is why they did it, but in fact the kicker. So it's an interesting play. So it is what it is. The league's trying to be innovative. They've done that over the years. They've made some great changes to rules that have turned out in the long term to be very good and help with scoring, which is the reason why they changed a lot of the rules. And many of the rules still to this day, fans still have complaints, like pass interference. It's one day you're on the side of the call, the next day you're not. It just depends on how your team's affected by the rule, as is the case usually with everything in life. My bad guy's a good guy. My bad play's a good play. So let's talk about the games that happened. You and I were both at Toronto. Oh, no, you weren't at the BC-Toronto game. What'd you hear about it?
I'd heard that it was a rather interesting back and forth contest, and that Lirim Hajrullahu should be fired into the sun because he's an absolute terrible kicker that should never be used in any situation ever again.
Holy mackerel! That's after one game.
After one game, he went 2 for 4 on converts and 3 for 3 on field goals. I'm not sure where these people are getting the idea that he's an horrific kicker from.
Stuff happens. It's one game. Be patient, Aaron. And they won the game, and he was part of the part of the win. He got some field goals, and that really helped the team. Toronto was really slow off the hop. They fell behind by something like 16 points in the first half, and they overcame that and outscored BC the rest of the way. The Argos did again, and we talked about this all year last year, and their second half adjustments are impeccable. And this year they started with a really good second half adjustment.
Well, I know Hajrullahu missed his convert in the first quarter. That's why we ended up with a 6 there. Outscored 20-10 in the second quarter is an indication that there's a bit of a problem. BC just seemed to be able to move the football down the field and score at will. But the fact that they actually managed to shift and flip the script for the third quarter where they outscored BC 10-4, and again in the final quarter where they outscored BC 9-3, and again that's where Hajrullahu missed his second convert. The final 35-27,
Hang on a second. Yep. Hang on a second. Lirim, I'll talk to you in a minute. Let Aaron finish his thing.
I think honestly, bringing him back is one of the better things that they've done. Not gonna lie.
Let's go. Saskatchewan 29, Edmonton 21. This was a bit of a back and forth as well. Again, these two quarterbacks and the quarterbacks more. Most of the quarterbacks actually only Bo Levi Mitchell didn't have a really good day. The rest of the quarterbacks did really well. They did really well, very well, or incredibly well. They did a great job. And in this game, that happened as well with Saskatchewan and Edmonton. Unfortunately, Edmonton fell short at home, and that's something they don't want to do. And of course, both these teams had something to prove from last year. Aaron, Saskatchewan was a contender the year before. They fell on hard times last year. Edmonton was not a contender at the beginning of the year. In fact, was very bad. And they became palatable later in the season, where they really, if they had had a couple of breaks at the end of the season, they could have made a run for the playoffs.
I'm just looking at that fourth quarter by Saskatchewan and thinking to myself, oof, outscored 21-3 in the final quarter. That is not a sign of a good defense. I'm not sure if they went to sleep. Too many beaver tails. I don't know. It just did not look like the kind of game that they wanted to play. I'm not sure if they were getting read too easily or what, but it just didn't look like it was a very good quarter at all for them.
Well, they snuck it out. Calgary beat Hamilton 32-24. I got to tell you, I expected more out of Hamilton and didn't expect as much as we got from Calgary.
No, that was definitely a surprise to me, especially with the way that they went into the half down 19-7. I thought it was pretty much game over at that point. But Calgary turned it around in the fourth with 17 points, which is, that's something that really shouldn't happen if you've got any sort of defense whatsoever. It just looks like, again, defensive breakdowns and mistakes off the line cost them.
Absolutely. Good for them. Hamilton needs some time to adjust. New coach, new players, new everything. They need some time. But one thing's for sure, they've got to get better week in, week out, or the fans are going to be on them like white on rice. Hamilton fans are becoming more and more impatient, not as a whole, but a very large segment of them. And that kind of pressure, it doesn't help a team. And well, anyway, Hamilton's going to, my prediction is they're going to be a lot better tomorrow than they were yesterday. And that's going to happen probably every week with the odd setback. Now, speaking of setbacks, Winnipeg had one in the Grey Cup against the Montreal Alouettes. And guess what? The Montreal Alouettes were upset when they were told they're going to play their first game on the road. So they said, hold my beer, will you?
Yeah, Montreal managed to get consistent scoring all throughout the game, which I think is key for them. They need to go out and they need to establish. They established that early. Come out of the first half leading 14-5 is definitely a good sign. That they were actually able to hold the Blue Bombers off the board in the third quarter entirely was also very encouraging for them. So I'm glad to see that they've taken the steps that they have, and I'm glad to see that their off-season moves, such as they were, helped them out in the end. I'm hoping that they're going to be challenging again and right up there with the Argos for one of the best CFL seasons ever.
One of the three juniors on the Toronto Blue Jays, and by juniors I mean sons of former big leaguers, has found his way to a team I think he's going to be very happy to be with, and that's Kevin Biggio going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, he finds himself now in a great situation with the LA Dodgers. In return, the Jays picked up a minor league pitcher by the name of Braden Fisher. Braden Fisher is more known for his curveball, which he uses just a little over half the time. He's also got some other pitches in his arsenal. He's got a fastball that sits around 91 to 93 miles an hour. He's got a cutter and he's got a slider. For all intents and purposes, he is a very capable minor league pitcher. I'd like to see him come through the Buffalo system and see how he does once he hits the majors. Biggio has been having some issues this season. He's batting 200. He had 2 home runs and 131 plate appearances when they finally put him on waivers prior to the trade. Sorry, when they DFA'd him Friday before the trade. Um, I mean, he's been playing with the Jays at the same time as Vladdy and Bo came up back in 2019. So while he's been with the Jays on the bigs for the past 5 years, and it's sad to see him go, I can't help but think this move is only going to benefit him in the long run.
Yeah, once in a while it happens. Players develop, whether it's a mental block, a physical block in an organization based on history and unable to change that history on a dime. Well, you get a chance to do that when you go to another team because, they're looking at you, they want you, that your confidence is that they want you. The big concern that I have is that all they got was a pitcher that could pitch 91 miles an hour. That's not really fast in the sense of hard balls in this era of Major League Baseball when we've got multiple pitchers who are thrown over 100 miles an hour. So we'll see how he works out his curveball if it works, and if he has a changeup. He still needs a bit of a fastball, but we'll see. Like you said, maybe the Jays see something they can work with, and they definitely need something to work with. They do need it more depth in pitching. So this is another arm. How good just another arm will be is the question that will be answered down the road. Let's talk about the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers' absence from the Jets minicap is unexcused. So it's not excused, says the head coach, Robert Saleh. Does that mean he's away without, it sounds like he's not there without permission of not being there?
That is what it sounds like. Coach Saleh said that he'd spoken over the weekend and spoken with Aaron before the OTA started. He's been very good at communication. He's been here the entire time. It's unexcused, but he has an event that he said was very important to him, which is what he communicated. Um, Now, they were also missing Hasten Reddick, who sat out team activities while seeking a new contract, but is in a really good place mentally and working his tail off. Both players are subject to fines from the CBA since the team did not excuse their absences. This 3-day minicamp is the only spring event considered mandatory and thus finable before training camp begins in July. Rodgers apparently communicated a while ago that he would be absent, and the team is not concerned about his development in playbook mastery entering year 20 of his NFL career. Tyrod Taylor was scheduled to take first snaps. Um, Now, he's hardly the first high profile player to miss a minicamp. Um,
Problem
and
is that older players need more time to get up to speed, and that's the thing that he has to overcome. Hopefully, wherever he is, he's doing what it takes to get ready for an NFL season.
and if he's really unlucky, it'll be a really short season, just like last season. So here's hoping he's doing the right things.
Yeah, well, we'll see. He's not exactly someone that is held in high esteem by everybody. He is a guy who's a lightning rod for commentary that isn't even football generated.
Well, I mean, he has been rumored to be Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s vice presidential candidate, so there maybe he's doing some groundwork for that.
There you
Who
go. Well,
knows?
good for him. NASCAR and its teams appear to have made no progress in expanding their charter agreement. This is not good.
No, this is not very good at all. This is something that we mentioned a couple weeks back. NASCAR and its teams announced what they call a charter agreement back in 2016. Charters are basically like franchises for 36 cars in the season. Um, each car with a charter gets a guaranteed entry into every race and a greater share of the prize money from NASCAR. In return, the teams can sell the charters if they downsize or shut down. Before the charter agreement, the NASCAR team that shuttered had no value to prospective buyers other than their equipment, basically, and real estate. An extension was announced in 2020 for this, meaning that the current agreement ended at the same time as NASCAR media rights deal following this 2024 season. They already announced its broadcast partners for 2025 and beyond, but that agreement didn't spur on the charter negotiations. Instead, it may actually end up being a sticking point. Teams have said that they want the charters to become permanent and have no expiry dates. Plus, they want a bigger chunk of the revenue. NASCAR tracks receive just over half of the media rights revenue, while NASCAR gets 10% and teams get the other 40. The issue that we're running into here is teams have borne the brunt of increasing costs in recent years, as NASCAR introduced new cars in 2022 that included spec parts from NASCAR approved suppliers. This increased costs for teams. Throw in a sponsor environment that's tougher and tougher for teams to navigate, and you can understand why teams would prefer that the charters become permanent so they don't have to keep renegotiating and including that in the budgets. And these things can get expensive. I think one of the more recent charters sold for somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million, and for the races that they have in a season, that is almost prohibitively expensive.
It is not. I'll explain it this way. It is like soccer, where you can trade a player, right? You get his rights, and he has a value, and you have to pay that value. The difference is that player doesn't worry about expenses that he has. His training and even his equipment is all covered. On the other hand, the cars are forced to pay the expenses of making things work and happen, and all the trials that they have to do. And as you said, purchasing the equipment, that's a lot of money that they have to fork over to join the races. And they're not, they're looking for guarantees. The reason I think they're looking for guarantees, Aaron, you think it's because they want to make sure that they at least have the costs covered?
Well, I think it's a cost certainty thing, and like they introduced a spending cap in F1, back in a few years back. That was to try to rein in spending and to make sure that certain teams weren't as dominant as they were. Um, in the same way, I think NASCAR is trying to stabilize costs. There is a degree of sustainability here because NASCAR is a business. So by making sure that these charters are permanent, the teams can help themselves. It cuts back on NASCAR's revenue, though, and that's the issue that they're currently dealing with. Is NASCAR wants the money, teams don't necessarily want to pay it.
Max Verstappen won the Formula One in Montreal, and you were there to see it. Tell us all about it, Aaron.
I was, you know what, rained all weekend, on and off, spotty rain here and there. He's now got 50 victories in his last 75 F1 races. He only finished, and this was the fun part, just 3.879 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. Um, there was some touch and go there. There was a period there where they were running on intermediate tires. These are tires that are designed to give them a little bit more durability, but also clear water. Affectionately known as greens. The wets are known as blues. They were getting to a point in the race where teams were going to have to decide if they wanted to come in or not. At one point, George Russell wanted to come in and slap on slicks, and the track wasn't completely dry. And the team was like, just wait. In about another 15 to 20 minutes, there's going to be a little bit of rain. And Russell was like, well, how much? About 2 laps worth, 2.5 minutes worth of rain. And that eventually made it so that, it made a huge difference to teams' tire strategies. Charles Leclerc tried to go out on slicks earlier before everybody else. So did Pierre Gasly. Didn't quite work out as they were expecting. But at the end of the day, the finish order was Verstappen, Lando Norris, and George Russell, 1, 2, 3. This greatly helps in tightening up the manufacturer's race. It helps tighten up the championship a little bit too. But this is a natural hat's trick for Verstappen because it's his 3rd win in a row in Montreal. So lots of fun to watch, though.
I can't believe what I'm looking at. The Joey Chestnut's not taking part in the Major League Eating contest.
Nope, he's actually received a competitive ban. He signed a 4-year, $1.2 million contract with Impossible Foods, who happened to be a direct competitor with Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs.
Oh,
so as a result of that, Nathan's Famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest has barred him from this year's competition. Now, Joey's won the championship 16 times, including the last 8 straight. So, maybe it's time. I'm curious as to why he decided to go with Impossible Foods.
I got 1.8 million reasons.
I mean, I can see that for sure, but It's one of those. Dude used to eat 47 grilled cheese sandwiches in 10 minutes. He ate 82 carnitas tacos in 8 minutes and 257 Hostess donuts in 6 minutes. This is an incredible eating machine. You got to wonder if maybe he's off meats. I mean,
I
it's
don't,
entirely possible he may be going with a vegan diet because those hot dogs are
I
just
don't,
tearing him up.
I don't know, but I'll tell you, 1.8 million reasons why he's doing what he's doing. He doesn't get to do, he doesn't get to keep what he had. He's making a decision, and he probably knew that if he signed this contract, he wouldn't be participating actually in the competitors contest for sure. Let's talk about the WNBA and the Washington Mystics.
So the Mystics did not have a good start to the season. They lost a franchise record 12 straight games to start the WNBA season this year. But they finally beat the Atlanta Dream 87-68 at the Gateway Center in College Park on Tuesday. It also ended their 14-game losing streak, which actually dated back to the end of last season and was the longest active streak in the league. The Mystics came out hot. They made 7 3-pointers in the first 10 minutes, which gave them a 10-point lead at the break. They hit 7-11 from beyond the arc to start the game, which was just fantastic. Washington managed only 13 points in the second quarter and made just a single 3-pointer before entering halftime with just a 5-point lead. That, however, was as close as the Dream got before the Mystics just shut the door. Brittany Sykes had 18 points on the night, 3 rebounds and 4 assists. Ryan Howard had 16, which dropped the Dream to 5-on-5 on the season.
Let's go to the Stanley Cup, and it appears Oilers' Leon Draisaitl to avoid discipline for the hit that took Panthers' Alexander Barkov out of Game 2.
Yeah, he I don't know if you saw the hit.
Saw it.
What'd you think?
It was dirty.
Leon Draisaitl, like Connor McDavid, is a player that sometimes has a spotless reputation and a reputation of being a very good boy. As a result of this, he sometimes gets away with shenanigans that he probably shouldn't, which included this very blatant and obvious elbow to the head. When he was given just 2 minutes after referee review, if you read lips, he very clearly said, "What did I do?" Come on, Leon. You know what you did.
He should just take your tail, put it between your legs, and be grateful it wasn't worse.
Yeah, I mean, Barkov didn't end up playing the last 9.5 minutes of the game, but the leaping hit by Leon Draisaitl right along the boards, making contact with the elbow first, was definitely not pretty.
It was Bennett-like.
Almost Nick Cousins-like, actually.
And Nick Cousins too. Yeah. Right? So I think in that game, they couldn't give him anything more than that because they gave Florida a 5-minute major penalty to work on. And I didn't think that was a 5-minute major. It was a penalty. It was kneeing. But it wasn't one of those knees that you see, and watching the broadcast, and I agree totally that it wasn't one of those knees where a guy moves his knee into the lane that the guy's knee's going. He just went straight ahead, and I'm not sure that he was actually aiming for the knee. It looked to me like he was trying to get out of the way, and he was going straight into him to make contact. So, but what ended up happening was the knee hit him. And here's the part that I like, Aaron. Didn't we talk about injuries that happened to Maple Leaf players on dirty plays and penalties and suspensions weren't called? And in this game, they said, well, he injured the guy. We have to penalize him.
Yeah, that was rather interesting. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't expecting that. I had issue here with the non-call on Draisaitl. Unfortunately, it wasn't called a major, so it wasn't reviewable.
Right, exactly. No. But my point being is they tell us in one instance, depending on who and what is happening, no, an injury shouldn't affect whether we give a suspension or a penalty. And then on the other hand, they blatantly say, well, there was an injury there, we have to penalize. Yeah. So how do you make I don't know how they make the decision. Is there a logical line that you can draw and all the calls and say, okay, this is, this line above and below. It's not like that. It's a line like this.
I'll be honest with you. I think they take a look at the teams, and whichever team has the son of an NHL board member working on it, that's the team that gets the majority of the calls.
Oh my God. That's just terrible. Well, the good news in this series is that both teams are both getting away with stuff and paying stuff. At the very least, that's okay, right?
Well, there was a fantastic play. I don't know if you caught it. It was just a little quick interchange between Evander Kane's fist
Yes.
and Kachuk's face in between the benches. I think Kachuk had slashed the stick out of Evander Kane's hands.
Yes, he did.
As Kane was passing Kachuk on the way to the bench. Unfortunately, his gloved fist found Kachuk's face.
Well, Kachuk
that
wasn't
wasn't
ready
called.
for that. Kachuk was going to hit him. I saw he was going to make contact with Kane, and Kane said, "Yeah, we can make contact. Your face, and my fist," and he got away with it. He got away with one, and you know what? This speaks to what we've talked about for years. I mean, it's a good segue to go to the Leafs. We've talked about this for years about the Leafs. I've said this over and over and over again, that the Maple Leafs don't have to be dirty. They just have to play tough enough that the other team, when they do something, the Leafs are capable of equally doing the same thing, which we're seeing definitively here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I go back to what I said. Both teams have done things, they've got away with it. Both teams have done things that they shouldn't have got away with. And both teams have been penalized a little more than normally you would think would happen, right? So at least it isn't. You have to play that way in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You have no choice. It's the way they officiate, Aaron. This series proves it.
And I think when you mentioned that stuff was caught, it does appear that the Maple Leaf curse is still following Sam Carrick around, because he got a 2 minutes a slashing minor and a 10-minute game misconduct, as well as a $2,213.50 fine for cup checking Dmitry Kulikov late in game 2. They were scrumming for the puck along the boards, and Carrick decided at that moment to make sure that Kulikov's cup was well and truly in place. I don't know how you call a slashing out of that. Unsportsmanlike conduct, I would definitely go with, but at least they caught that.
Well, brings new meaning to get his bells rung.
Indeed.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. Sorry. The Maple Leafs are interested in Sharks defenseman Mario Ferraro. He could circle back. They could circle back on Luke Kunin.
Yeah, so it is almost the start of silly season. The draft is coming up in a couple of weeks. As you know, plenty of teams are looking to add significant pieces to their back end, whether it be through the pathway of free agency or via trade. Brad Treliving, in recent press conferences, has made it clear he's committed to improving the team's blue line ahead of the 2024-2025 season. As reported Tuesday by David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period, the Leafs are believed to have a renewed interest in Mario Ferraro, the Sharks' top pairing defenseman, who the team was keen on back in February, just before the 2024 deadline. The Leafs, the Predators, the Flames, the Canes, and the Blackhawks are amongst the teams believed to have varying level of interests in Ferraro, some going back to the middle of this most previous season. So it's an interesting situation to find themselves in. For sure, they do definitely need improvement on the back end. So we'll see if anything comes of this in the next couple of weeks or so, leading up to free agency.
It's too early to gang up on Treliving. A lot of people are assuming that he's going to make the same mistake he made with Calgary with Mitch Marner. Unfortunately, he already has. I mean, the moment has passed when he could trade Marner for the highest return. When they had the opportunity last year, they should have done it, Aaron. I keep saying this only because they had two choices last year. Trade him then when they get something closer to what his value is, or wait till next year when you can't get anything for him. I don't understand. He's not. He's a guy who helps during the regular season. I'll grant people that, but he's not a playoff contender. He's never been one that's been very, very successful. Getting points in the playoffs is all well and good. Great, you can get points. But the problem with the Leafs hasn't been just getting points. It's been stopping the opposition and playing the kind of hockey that we just talked about that's going on between the Oilers, all right, and the Florida Panthers. This is something. He's a great player. He's a wonderful talent, but unfortunately, hockey's a contact sport, and that's a problem for Mitch Marner. And it's okay. He's a class act. He's a great player, quality player, but he doesn't play the style that's conducive to winning in the playoffs. He's just not. It's not his thing. It's not his cup of tea. What are you going to do? Now, having said that, he can make a fool out of me and everybody else who thinks that, and turn around and go, you know what? These A personalities need to be put in their place. I'm going to show him what I can do. I hope he does for his sake. But if he continues on the path that he's on, only he's going to think he's a great player, and only he's going to think that he earns more than $10 million a year.
This is, one of those situations where Dubas leaving and Treliving coming in created too much of a maelstrom effect for them to actually be able to get anything successful done before a lot of no movement clauses kicked in.
But Aaron, Barron, you know what? I'm going to grant you. I said I'd let Brad Treliving off the hook, but this doesn't let Shanahan off the hook.
Oh,
Shanahan, part of those contracts being signed, he knew that free agency is where Marner was going to go this year, and he knew he could only get rid of him last year for something of value, and he vapor locked. That's all it is. Shanahan has had problems following through on the last moves you need to. We see teams like Florida, right? They make a trade or they make a couple of moves, and they're moves that actually help the team make another step. The Leafs make trades, unfortunately, that put them in the position of hoping they can make another step. Because even Vancouver, even though they lost to Edmonton, I like what they did at the end of the year, Aaron. They brought some serious players that helped them be really competitive. And it's no shame to be losing to Edmonton. The Oilers are a team that have been so good and so much falling short by so little. And the greatness that they have on their team finally rose up. And the greatness that they have isn't the star group. It's the guys they have on the third and fourth lines that have helped that team make it to where they want to be. And I know with the Leafs, you have your problem with some of the third and fourth liners, and I don't blame you. At the end of the day, production in the playoffs is required. And imposing your will on the opposition is rule number one. If you can't do that in the playoffs, you're not going to win.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is this is a team that's been lacking in that department for so many years. I'm not even sure if it's fixable with the current front office that they have, not making the decisions that they need to make.
I think it's important. I think it's very important that at this point, I would say Shanahan step out of the way and don't bother Treliving. Let him do what he's going to do. That's what I would say. Because Shanahan has been here for 10 years. In Toronto for 10 years, and he hasn't done enough to bring a championship team. He's only done enough to create a team that's really good during the regular season, and I don't think that's enough for Toronto hockey fans. Now it could be that could be all that Toronto hockey fans want, but I don't think it is.
No, we want 16 wins in the playoffs. We don't want just 4 or just 5 anymore. This is getting to the point where the Shanna plan is becoming almost as much of a joke as chanting 67 at Toronto's fans, because he has been woefully inept. And if I see him on the go train, I'm not going to say that to his face because he's frightening. But at the same time, he's got to realize that there's something that has to be done here. Something's got to give.
If he's on the go train or on the subway, he's going to get some stink eye from some Leaf fans.
Oh, guaranteed. I mean,
No
I'm
doubt.
not going to say anything to him because it's not a team sanctioned event and I'm not paying money to be there. And nobody gets my advice for free except here. But, like, I'm pretty sure he knows how fans feel about him.
And I'm not sure, actually. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I hope that he understands what he's done wrong in the past that has not allowed the team to take that next step, so that it's not always, it's not always what you do in sports that creates a championship. Sometimes it's what you don't do. It's knowing when not to do something and when to do something. That's the key. Either of those situations can put you over the top. Either.
That's very true. It's a fine line between not doing enough and doing too much.
Right. Exactly. Thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate you doing this, buddy.
Hey, Frank, any day.
I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. And don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube. Ciao for now.